Good evening. Hi, I'm Bob Pace, your host. This is a show where we're going to fight CPS and stop taking our children. I'm glad that you all joined me this evening. I'm in what used to be sunny California, but it's now rainy California. We get more rain. I just can't believe it. This is unbelievable. We've had more rain than I can remember in at least 40 years. And it's a good thing. I hope you all are staying nice and dry in every part of the world. Now, we had a guest scheduled and she was on the road and she had issues getting on there, but I want everyone to know that this is an interactive show. It's just not me talking. Now, hopefully a lot of you do the talking. I'm here to try to help you fight CPS and stop taking your children. It's a terrible position you're in. I've been there. I've been fighting CPS for 14 years. 3 of it, they took my children and only got back 2 out of 3. They steal your children. It's called child trafficking, and they're putting them into foster care. And all the cases seem to be in imminent danger. And your child has to be taken into custody. And it breaks so many of your constitutional and civil rights. I know what you're going through. And I'm not an attorney, but I have ideas that can help you. I have 3 rules that will help you. I have my story. It happened to me just like it's happened to you. I have stories of other people. A lot of you all are following me and coming on the show, and I appreciate hearing from you. I first want to thank Mr. Vincent W. Davis for producing this podcast. He says if you need help, call him at 888-888-6582. I will talk to you later about Mr. Davis. Welcome, Lee Mina. That's one part of our podcast is open to comments. So if you have a comment about anything about CPS, please tell me. I'd like to know the city and state you're from because it helps me know generally where, if the problems are similar or different in CPS around the United States. This program also is worldwide. It reaches everywhere. I have people that commented from Australia, several from Canada, United Kingdom. I have Ghana. I have Mexico, and then Mozambique. So I appreciate comments from all people that are very constructive and that could ask a question I could help you with. All I ask besides your name is the city and state or country you're from. Now, another way that the show is interactive is that you can call in right now at 626-698-0990. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to have you speak on my show about your case. Maybe you can help others like I'm trying to help you. And I know it may be hard to talk about your case, and that's understandable. And if you want to talk about your case, let's say at a later date and be on my show as a guest, I'd love to have you also. All you need to do is write an email to my great producer, Grace, who does a lot of work behind the scenes. And I'd be lost without her. You just email her, grace@vincentwdavis.com. That's grace@vincentwdavis.com. And tell her what show you want to be on. Now, I'm on 14 times a week, twice a day, 7 days a week. I'm on the morning and on the evening. So you do say morning or evening show. My typical show times are 10 o'clock in the morning for an hour Pacific Standard Time and 7 o'clock at night for an hour Pacific Standard Time. Now, there had been some changes, like this morning I was on at 7 o'clock in the morning. And that was great for the East Coast people because it'd be only 10 o'clock your time. So, 10 o'clock your time. So that was a good time. So it makes it more available. Tomorrow, normally I come on at 10:30 because there's another podcast, but I'm going to move it to 12:30. So I'll be on at 12:30, sort of right after lunch hour. My morning show will be after 12:30. And so that's kind of like my schedule and how they get on as a guest. I'd like to have you on there. So now I've told you about how the text and how to call in and how to schedule another time on my show. You're being sarcastic. Oh, I'm sorry, Lee, if I offended you. I didn't mean to be sarcastic. I didn't mean to do that, Lee. What city and state are you from, Lee? And what is your CPS case? Now, I know that you're probably wondering about this organization called CPS. Well, the Child Protection System, which is CPS, or the Child Protection Service, which in California is called, in other places it's called, some places it's called Department of Child Care. There's other acronyms. But what it is that social service has a branch that deals with the children, the protection of abuse and neglect of children, and also family reunification. It's very important I mention family reunification because parents sometimes are tossed aside with CPS. They don't think too much of us parents. And yes, we may have had a hiccup or two of trying to take our kids, but we weren't born with a manual. We weren't born with a manual. So, things like little mistakes can be fixed, but it seems like lately that over the 500 some people I've talked to around the country and the world, there's something in common. They're needlessly taking every child every time they investigate, and they think every parent is just as bad as the bad parents that do treat children bad. Now, there are parents that get very upset with their children. They're screaming and yelling. They throw the kid against the wall to make him be quiet, or they slap a kid, or they use unusual corporate punishment. And yes, those parents should be investigated and they should be going through corrective measures. It doesn't mean they have to jump and take away the child. This rush to put them into foster care, that's what they're doing in the foster care system. They are actually trafficking your child and put them into foster care. And all that is for is so they get money from your child. You see, the U.S. government is very good about giving money out and no accountability. And right now, there's $20,000 per child given out per month to take care of a child. Now, I've talked to someone here, and you've told me similar things. You told me places like in Kentucky, where there was unaccountable $389,000 went unaccountable for. The child protection system couldn't account for it. That service there in Georgia couldn't account for it. And there we go. The government is really bad about letting money out to people. And you wonder why they're always out of money. They're trying to balance the budget. Another example is they're needlessly to give money to supposedly organizations. Like there's a cult group. And I mean cult because they're not your typical norm. But they get money over $1 million, every year to manufacture alternative source of fuel. Well, to date, they haven't produced any fuel. And they get that money, and all it does is help out their cult. There's so much wasted of our government money. It's your money. It's your taxpayers. You give them taxes, they use that money. And so there's something that they need to check on. Or some of the, like the military. I'm not downplaying the military, but when they send a bill to the government, they want to replace a toilet seat. and they charge $500 for a toilet seat. Well, a toilet seat at at one of the building supply places doesn't cost that much. I mean, the most fanciest toilet seats are $100. But then again, there's wasteful spending. There's so much money is being wasted in the U.S. government. We shouldn't be there. And I hope the new administration, one of the things they look at is how we spend our money. There should be, accountability for all the money. And to have groups that portray that they're the religious cult, they really aren't. And I only bring up that thing because I was looking at the internet and I came across that article about how religious groups are grabbing the money that could be used for other programs such as Child Protection Service. But then I find out that the money that they get is for giving out bonuses to social workers. And who are your social workers? Your social workers are everyday people like that, but they're not qualified to be a social worker. My social worker was terrible. No college degree, no classes in social work, no license, no certificate, no training or mitigating another social worker for, let's say, 5 years so they could be a good social worker. Instead, they come out there and violate everything. Now, Michelle Chrissy Martinez, welcome. She says, what about the 500 kids that go missing in every month? Okay, I got to read that. I'm not reading that very well. Here, let me put it up on the screen. What about the 500 kids that go missing in Arizona every month? Is the Control and Care Department children unsafety? Where are the 500 Amber Alerts? Well, I appreciate your comment there, Michelle. I assume you're from Arizona. I don't know what part of Arizona, but I assume that you're from Arizona. And I did not know till you tell me that they're missing kids in Arizona. 500 is a lot of kids. A lot of kids. That's a horrible thing, of missing children. And where is the Child Protection Agency to protect those kids? Welcome the Truth Movement. Well, yeah, they don't wink, wink, but Truth Movement, it is kidnapping because they're doing it for alternative motives. The children are taken for the sole purpose of getting money to give to workers so that it repeats the cycle. The foster care system is broken. If you have kids that are taken, they're immediately put in the foster care system and placed in a shelter, a group home, or a single family home with a family, and they're abused there. They're even lost there. There are children that go lost. There's a story of children being moved to Texas from Georgia because Georgia doesn't have the treatment centers for emotional children that are supposedly very emotional. But that's not true either, because that's the opinion of a social worker that's not a lawyer. Not a doctor or have any medical experience. Supposedly social workers can do mental health and tell if a parent has mental health problems for a child and also prescribe medication. There are social workers that do that. They're not clinical psychiatrists. They're not trained, but they do it. It's horrible out there. I've heard a lot of stories on here. I've heard the stories from the Truth Movement, and I've heard that about that. The 500 kids that go missing in Arizona every month. That is a big number. I'll have to look at that. I'll have to look into that. Right now, there's 3.8 million children being investigated by Child Protection System. That's 1 in every 20 child. 1 in every 20 child. And lately, when they get an alleged complaint, that's how it all starts with a phone call. And it can be from a professional or it can be from a lay person. In my case, I had my family in-laws that reported things that weren't true. And for 5 years, I had to deal with that. To finally, they came in to see me and tricked me to follow a detective home to have my house looked into. And there was nothing in my house. They were looking for something. It was ridiculous. It was on a witch hunt. All vendetta there. And the whole purpose was they took my children from school. They said they're in imminent danger. How are they in imminent danger? There's nothing happening to them. They're doing A's and B's at school. They're fully fed. We had power at the house, everything. The only thing that I was going through at the time they're doing that was trying to find work. I had lost my job 5 years earlier, and my in-laws wanted to take the children, so they thought they would create things. And it was through no fault of my own that I lost my job. The state of California had a governor that was trying to be creative, and I had over $50 million worth of contract work with the state of California in construction. They took my contracts and gave me IOUs. Now, what am I supposed to do with an IOU? I go to the banks. Hey, can I get a credit line to start this project? It's a legitimate contract. I'm in contract with the state. The bank said, hell no. They're recently burned with these predator loans. Loans where the lenders changed the documents, raised your salary to twice or 3 times the amount you're making so you qualify for a home, and then they would get a bonus. They would get a bonus, a big bonus. And they do it repeatedly. Credit lines and everything. Yes, court is a joke. We are only human. And I appreciate having you there. Welcome, we're only human. Yes, court is a joke. It's a kangaroo court. Dependency court, in my case, was a joke. The judge, his background was how to fight auto claims and auto collisions. How does he know anything about family reunification or neglect or abuse of children? He wasn't a family lawyer. And speaking of courts and judges, make sure you vote this year for the judges, because the judges, we are responsible to put those judges in office. So we should be careful how we vote. We should be careful how we vote. So I agree with you. We are really human. So, CPS sucks. They're not transparent. They hide things. They lie things. They abuse the police. They intimidate. And the whole purpose is so they get bonuses and get money. Okay, we are only human. I forgot where you're at. I know you've been on before. They saw the evidence, but still left me on supervised visits in my home with my daughter. The 2 sons only see her once a week. They could have made them visits for them. They are notorious for breaking up families. It says in their handbook they're supposed to keep families together in group homes if they have to take the children. See, that's one thing we got to look at is why do they take the children for every case? The children are not being punched or kicked or tortured, or being shot at or whatever the imminent danger is, but they still take the children. Why? Oh, they might find some drug paraphernalia, or you may have been involved as a foster kid yourself growing up, or you may have a prison sentence you served a long time ago, or, that's what they think is imminent danger. They really are bad. I mean, there was one case, and I referred to it, of a mother who was in a hospital going through surgeries, and she prearranged to have her children with her mother in another state. It just so happens Massachusetts and Rhode Island are close to each other, and Boston's real close to where Rhode Island, and I don't remember the city in Rhode Island, but the social workers who happen to also be in the hospital, be careful now. Social workers hide out in the hospital. They're bad. They're bad news. Well, she did some questioning and she thought And the mother was a little druggy or something. And she says, well, my children are fine. They're with my mother. And she told her where they were. It was my mother in Rhode Island. Well, you know what these social workers did? They got in their car, went across state lines into another county's jurisdiction of the child protection system, knocked on the door of the grandmother, and said, we're here to take the children because the mother has abandoned them through neglect. And that wasn't the case at all. They were in imminent danger. They could have stayed with the grandmother. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. We're only human. I weren't sick about my daughter being in her foster home. I know you are. I know that. My daughter was in a foster home and she was brainwashed to be adopted by them. And I hate to tell you that. They can divorce you at age 12. That's how young my daughter was. At age 12, the social worker, not her, not my in-laws, not all these other people that are trying to steal my daughter. The social worker told her, you need to divorce your mother and father. Now, what kind of a social worker is that? What kind of a social worker, a human being, would do that? Not only they told us to divorce your mother and father, but also divorce your brothers, your grandparents, all the relatives. And on top of that, change your name, seal your birth certificate, and get adopted by a foster care family who this day, she's 21 right now, and she's living on her own because she couldn't stay anymore to be with her foster parents. She was told for money's sake, and I was struggling to pay my bills because I lost my job. And she saw, I sometimes say that she was a Barbie girl in a Barbie world, you know. She wanted all these nice things, and I used to do that really nice to my family. Yes, I'm taking calls. Hopefully I can get her into calling. Yes. Please, um, please, I am taking calls for all that you are hearing. I'd love to have someone call in and talk about their case, and maybe we can help her or him or whatever it is. The truth movement, yeah. I hope you can talk her into calling because I'd love to have someone else besides me. And I haven't heard anything from Lee Mina, and I didn't mean to sound sarcastic. I sometimes make stories that not stories, but tell things the way the CPS is. CPS is a horrible agency. And I need to talk about rule number 1 and how you can save your children and how you can get help. Now, the child protection system, or whatever they call themselves in your state, is a mess. I say it's like you're Alice in Wonderland and you found a hole and you run down the hole, the rabbit hole. And what happened to Alice? She encountered all these doors that got nowhere. She started having weird things happen to her in her journey through Alice in Wonderland. Well, that's what child protection services or system is. They will confuse you. They will lose you. They will, you know, they will do anything to keep your children. And they do trafficking. They do trafficking. I agree with you. We are only human. You complete everything. I did that so many times, and they still, because they draw it out. They want it to still happen for so long. They want to draw it out. They want to draw it out. So anyway, you know, they're not transparent. They're not going to care about parents. They're rude to elderly people. They're rude to senior people. You know, they treat you like you're an idiot and stuff. Now, a lot of you may be going through hard times. Maybe you lost your home. Maybe you lost your job and you're homeless. I've been homeless. I was so bad that when I lost my home, and the reason I lost my home is I got the money to have it sold so I could defend and get my family back together. Child protection system stole my home that I worked 40 years for. I had to get an attorney to fight them because they're so bad. I was going nowhere. I tried to fight them for a year and a half. I went to the top dog, the director of the child protection services. And it was in Southern California that I was fighting him. I went to a building that he resided in. He wouldn't be in the other buildings that was for the social workers. He had to be his own building. It's a Taj Mahal of a building. And it's a very well-to-do place. It was state-of-the-art architectural, green windows. And again, it looked like the Taj Mahal of India. But this one was green, like the Emerald City of Oz. And I tell you, he gave me every which way. He'd go in one ear, go out the other ear. He was so rich looking because he had gold around his neck that made him look like he was ready to fall over. That's where the money was going. It's $1 billion business. And they give their social workers the incentive of keeping the children, keep the case open, put the children in the foster care system, take away your child, and the alleged and the neglect may have been minors, or it was someone that called in with a false allegations. And that's one thing I want to talk about: false allegations. That's what got me into trouble. And I had no idea my in-laws would do something like that. And one of my in-laws was my wife's sister. My wife was horrid to find they did this. But she is a social worker, and she knew the right buzzwords to call in and have the social workers investigate us. And for 5 years, they did that, and they couldn't find anything wrong with us. They said stupid things like, you haven't been paying your electric bill, you haven't paid your gas bill, you haven't been paid your water bill or sewer bill. I showed them all the receipts of the payments. I showed them at that time. I let them in my home. I did not know that was a no-no, but I let them in my home and I showed them my refrigerator full of food, my cupboards, my home. My home was great. There was nothing wrong with my home. There was nothing wrong with my home. And I met with them outside because I didn't like them in my home because they're weird. They look around things. They go into drawers without a search warrant. I mean, they look at things like my wife's underwear drawer. Now, that is really sick. They really are. I mean, I don't know. The more I talk about my case, the more angry I get because the things that I talk about now and realize I wish I knew at the time. I wish it was still at the time. So I'm talking about rule number one, and the most important rule in fighting CPS is that you have a family lawyer, an attorney that can represent you, that knows how to work the CPS system, that knows the laws. And just like I think of fighting CPS as a surgeon doing open heart surgery on your heart, repairing a valve or a stent or doing something to your heart. And that's what it is, fighting CPS. And you do need an attorney. Now, a lot of people say, well, I get one at dependency hearing. I get a court-appointed attorney. They are a joke. One guy went through 37 court-appointed attorneys. They don't represent you. They're not trained as a family law attorney. They're new. They have a caseload of 20 clients. They can't handle it. And they won't fight for you. They're in cahoots with the court, the kangaroo court. Everybody in that courtroom is holding hands, meaning they eat lunch together, play golf together. They're all in it for themselves and for the money from the CPS. Well, We're Only Human says my social worker once dropped off the kids to visit, and she pulled her car into the backyard. I could tell she was on a power trip. Well, that's stupid. Why would she pull into your backyard? That's your private castle, and that's wrong. She violated your constitutional right. Your home is protected. No one goes in your home, even police. They have to have a court order or warrant, but I'll talk about that later. But going back to getting an attorney, a doctor that's performing surgery goes through medical school, internship, and is mentored by another doctor before they even go into your body cavity. And that's what you need in child protection uh, system that you're caught up in. You need a professional. Would you yourself or a layman open up your body cavity, work on your heart? Would you have somebody that's not trained or anything? No. And that's why you need to get an attorney. Your public defender will not help you. I tried all that my first year and a half with them. It was terrible. It wasn't until I got to get an attorney. Now, right now, you're probably going to look for attorneys. You probably don't have money. I didn't, but I had to sell my home. Maybe get a credit line in your home. Maybe get a loan from a family friend. It was worth it to fight for my family. I love my children. I love them. I love them. I love them. I have 6 of them. And my 2 boys are still recovering from being in the system. One was in a senior in college and bailed out after doing nothing but A's and B's, and he bailed out because he couldn't take anymore. He was hurt in foster care, and it hurt him later. My daughter, who was stolen away from me and that was adopted at age 12, is struggling at age 21. I hear about it because my son still visits her. I encourage her my sons to keep in touch with her, even though she doesn't have to. She don't want to see her mom or dad, but I don't know. I just don't know. It's bad out there, and I hate to tell you the stories. It's bad. Uh, the truth is that person's still going to talk. The truth movement. I would like very much to have her talk on the show because we'd like to help her and anybody else. Now, I'm talking about rule number 1 about getting an attorney. And, you should make a list of at least 10 family law attorneys. And from that list of 10, you should narrow it down to 5 that have fought CPS, that have won case against CPS, that have references you can talk to. Also, those 5, you need to interview them and see if you can afford them or work out some type of arrangements. Some attorneys do pro bono. That means they'll do the case for free. And, anything's possible. Now, I have an attorney that can be on that list, that call list of 5 people. That attorney is Mr. Vincent W. Davis, the one I talked about at the beginning of the show, that produces the show, and I thanked him. He is a family law attorney. Been doing it a long time. Has fought CPS. And he has won cases. He even sued CPS, done civil lawsuits, federal courts and state courts. He's a trial attorney. And right now he'll talk to you for 30 minutes for $49.99. That's $50 for 30 minutes. That's a pretty good price for an attorney. And during that time, he'll talk about the strategies of how to fight CPS and how to get your children back. You can't go wrong with him. And I encourage that. And when you do call, you just call 888-6582, and you schedule your time with him for 30 minutes. And when you call in, make sure you tell him that Bob Pace sent you. And further, when you talk to Mr. Davis, you say Bob Pace sent you. It's important that he knows that I am uh, helping out you guys out there by getting legal help. You need legal help. This is a monster and a nightmare. When you get him aboard, now you may talk to him and he talks about his retainer. You may want him. Go ahead and hire him. He does work in Southern California, but he also does work in Northern California and the 50 states. A couple weeks ago, he was in Oklahoma. A week ago, he's in Northern California. He tries to handle so many cases. He's a good attorney and he's very well known in the country. He has his own podcasts and so forth. Now, please let the comments come in. I appreciate the comments because it gives me something to talk about differently than in my case. Also, I hope anybody would like to call in to be a guest on my show. There's still 25 minutes left. All you do is call in 626-698-0990. And you want to, talk about your case and you have an open forum to do so. You won't be seen, but be able to talk because I put you on my speakerphone. And again, if you want to talk at another time, I'd love to have you. All you do is write my producer, Grace. You send her an email at grace@vincentwdavis.com. Grace@vincentwdavis.com. It's scrolling on the bottom of my window. You can see that. My number to call in is right there, and the number to call Mr. Davis is right there. So that's all on. It's very, very, very important. And I know that once you talk to Mr. Davis, you'll get a big relief. Now, a lot of you keep calling and coming back. That's great, and I appreciate having you. I'll try to help you. Because I care about you as a person. You're a human being in this world. You wanted to have children, and you had children. And you want to take care of your children because you call in or ask questions because you care. You really care. I know. You need to somehow, don't give up. You need to somehow get the message to your children that you're fighting for them. One thing that CPS has is they try to alienate your children, which is against the law. They don't tell you what's going on. In fact, when a case is open and they take your children, I think you need at least once a month meetings. It'd be nice weekly meetings, but that's probably too much. But once a month, even though you have visitations, you're not supposed to talk about. But that monthly meeting, you, the children, and the mother and father, and the social workers, and your attorneys meet and talk about what you're doing to get your children back. You need to know what the children are doing. You need to know what the parents are doing. That gives hopes to the children. They don't like that at all. They don't want to have any hopes for the children to get their parents back. Why? They hope to be in a foster care system and they get all that money until they're 18. And then on top of that, they grow up and have children. They have a record, and foster care will get their children. There's been several foster care adults here that have children that the foster care people have gotten. The child protection people have gotten back and taken their children. Now, the reason why I call it trafficking is the art of seducing children trafficking. There's adult trafficking too. Don't forget that. And to use them. Now, what CPS is doing, they're using them for money. What other people do, they use them for sex, prostitution, use them for the slave trade, to work in homes around the world. They put them on container ships. I live in the number one area in the country for child trafficking in the United States. There are more people taken in my community than anywhere else. And I don't know if where I live is anything special, but, children allowed, there's, I don't know. It amazes me. And then this agency who calls them the Child Protection Services is not protecting your children. They're trafficking your children, putting them into foster care. And the cycle repeats itself and repeats itself and repeats itself. And I'm glad you haven't given up. I'm glad you haven't given up. We're only human. I'm glad you haven't given up. And I'm glad you keep coming back to my podcast. And hopefully you learned something in there, and hopefully your case will give you, because you're a good person. We're only human. And the rest of you too. You know, um, I've seen the truth movement person before. They've been on my show. They've actually talked on my show. Now, Lee, Mina, I haven't heard from you. You started off talking. Michelle, you did too. I think you're from Arizona, but you're saying 500 children are taken every month. That's hard to believe. That's hard to believe. 2 months, that's 1,000 children. Good grief. That's 6,000 children a year are missing. That's a phenomenal number. I got to look at that. I got to check that out. So I've talked about rule number 1, where you need an attorney. And I've given you somebody that you can contact and talk to. Please take it up on their offer. Please take them off. I agree what you're saying, Truth Movement. I was saying that earlier, that you should have weekly. Whoops, I put down the wrong comment here. Oh, shoot. Yeah, the ICE taking children. Well, we're now talking about our borders and the influx of 1 million people a month. They're coming into this country. It's unbelievable. Think of families and children that come from Colombia or different places. They come to the United States and they get caught up in CPS. Oh my God, it's terrible. Now, there's 2 other rules I want to talk about. The second rule is a real easy one, and it's something I should have done, but I didn't do. Is you need to have a notebook to keep track of all the incidents that happen with your CPS case. You need to just have this big notebook, label it, wherever you want to label it, something you know there. But at the beginning, you put your first incident, your date and time, and the people involved. The next line, or 2 or 3, you describe what the incident was. They took your children, they came into your home, you met with them, whatever the case is. And then after that, you have your third line and you want to talk to them. Hold on. I thought I had my phone on, but I hear the vibrations. I don't know why I'm hearing vibrations, but just a moment, please. Yep, it's on vibration. No wonder I might hear my phone ring. Jeez. Okay. Let me see if anybody contacted me. Okay. All right. Okay. Be right with you here. Go ahead. See who called tonight. Anybody on my business phone here? All calls. Nope. The last call was yesterday. So I've still not heard anybody that wants to call in. But my phone is on. It's ready to take your call. Any of you that want to come in there. Now, the Truth Movement has said something more. I was reading, it says that 802 children in Arizona age out of foster care in 2019. That's a lot of people. I agree. Okay. That's still a lot of people. Thank you for sharing that. Now, so I was talking about rule number 2, the notebook. You keep writing down and then you want to write the conclusion of what the incident was. You may not have that conclusion for a month or 2 or 6 months or a year or maybe a couple of years. Depends on what that incident was about. But you make a list of all these incidents and you go down the page, and now you'll have a history of what's been happening with your CPS case. And you can get back to that. Now we have another person here called the Word Around the Bench. I'm doing fine. Thank you very much to ask me that. I'm hanging in there. It does hurt me to talk about my case, about my lost daughter, and I hurt for you all, and I care about you all. Because fighting CPS for 14 years has been hard. I wish I could have a congressman or woman listen to me. Because in order to make these changes, we need Congress to make the changes. There's a lot of changes that have to be made. One of the first things that we need to do is instill some type of a watchdog system on child protection service. Something that will keep them transparent and show where the money's being spent. Either a board of supervisors, a board of directors. They have accountability. That's the first thing I would change. The second thing would be that all social workers have a college degree in social work. And they further take a test for a license or certification that has to be renewed every 5 years. Because there's changes. Just like a doctor or a policeman, they all have licenses. They all take updated classes and so forth. So that should be done. A third thing is we need to have it set up where the call-ins, either done by professional people or by lay people, are done in writings. They have to write their complaint and they have to sign their name. Now, the information need not be given out to the people they're accusing. But the social workers can keep the information, and if they found that they're lying, the information is given out so they could be sued. That's wrong. That's wrong that people use the system to get back at somebody. Because it's happened to me with my in-laws. It's happened with you all, with friends, neighbors. They don't like the way your dog barks, or they don't like your bushes. And they say, oh, I'll call, the CPS and make up a story. That will fix them. That will fix them. Or I want to take your kids and call in. There's so many stories of aunts and uncles taking children, of family members calling that things are not true. Because I've heard from you. I've heard from all of you. And it's important there. Now we have 10 minutes left. I'll still take a call. Please call me at 626-698-0990. And please keep your comments coming in. All I ask is the city and state where you're from, because I can't remember. And I'm trying to get a general speaking, but it seems like everybody has the same problem. I don't care if you're on the Rosebud Reservation or up in Maine, you still have the similar problem as someone does in Arizona. And speaking of Rosebud Reservation, that's where the Lakota Sioux live. And that trail is here. They have a thing called ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act. And when you have your safety meeting after your kids are stolen, you go to the safety meeting and you talk about where the kids should stay. The social worker will ask you for a list of family members, which is the best place. Okay, I'm talking. All right, now, word around the bench. Yes, I'm on 7 days a week, twice a day. But tomorrow I'm on at 12:30. That is the only hiccup. I'm not on at 10 o'clock. I'm on at 12:30. I'll be on at 12:30. So that's when I'll be on, and then again on at 7 o'clock at night. There are times, sometimes I can't make the 10 o'clock time or the 7 o'clock time. Again, that's Pacific Standard Time. Now, this thing called the ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act, is for all you Indians out there. And I'm proud of you guys because you're the first immigrants in this country, but you also seem at the bottom of the barrel in our country. The people of the Native Indians were done wrong in the 1800s, and we've been trying to make corrections ever since. And this is a correction to what took place in the 1870s. There's a horrible things that were happening, and in the 1890s and 1900s. Anyway, in 1979, an act was passed called the Indian Child Welfare Act. And it was made because CPS was taking all our Indian children and not return them to their mothers and fathers. The mothers and fathers live in a very poor situation. The Rosebud Reservation is probably the poorest place in the United States. Not the world, but the United States. And the Rosebud Reservation is where they've been there for hundreds of years. And it's sad because through a lot of the broken treaties and broken promises, they've been there. But anyway, they passed this act which says that the child protection system must ask anybody that comes into them that are they a Native American Indian? And if they say yes, or they could be, then they're going to write to the tribe you tell them. And there is a federal recognized list of tribes. The Lakota Sioux is one of them. And they will write the tribe and see if you're registered. And if you're not registered, they'll ask you, can you be registered? One of the hardest things I see, though, is Indians didn't keep books, didn't write down things. Word of mouth. My great-great-grandmother is a full-blooded Lakota Sioux. And I can't find her Indian name. I found her picture and my great-grandfather and my grandfather. My grandfather was in native dress. My great grandmother was a native dress. But it is hard there. But I want you all to know what they do is CPS automatically turns the children over to the tribe. And the tribe itself puts it with family members. They can get the children back on their feet and get them back with their mother and father. Help out. The tribe does help out. They're not in there for the money or abusing the things. They're not like CPS. So there was an act passed in 1979. And it's very important, I tell you, because we cater to all people, all immigrants in the United States. The Native American Indians were the first immigrants. Then we have the Europeans. And now we have everybody coming in. We have an open house store here. And it is a nightmare. I mean, there is a nightmare in social services, and child protection services has a big job. And I don't blame them, but they also have to be accountable. They also got to treat people with respect and honesty. I hate when people lie, especially the government lies. The government's so full of politicians that do nothing that serve interest groups. It's got to be run as a business. You need a businessman or a woman that knows how to run a business, that's successful running a business. That's the only way our country can be strong and get better and everything. Now, the third rule is, and I said earlier, you don't let them in your home. Your home is your castle. They can't enter your home without your permission unless there is an ongoing intimate danger going, like maybe the child is being hit or struck, or that there's a gun battle taking place, some extreme danger. Not because, in my case, is because of neglect, because I had my family boxes and furniture stacked in the house and I couldn't afford a storage unit and my parents were dying. I was consolidating their personal things and giving out to families. That's what they got me on. When they got into my house, they saw the boxes and think, oh my God, your children are in danger. They're being neglected. Right. Boxes are going to come up the stairs and attack my children in their bedrooms. Or the furniture is going to walk, even though it has legs, those legs don't move. They're going to walk up the stairs and attack my children. That's how stupid it was. That's how stupid they were. And they destroyed my family. They put them in a shelter that was next door to a prison, a juvenile prison, where the play area yard was next to their play yard, and they could exchange things through the fence. What kind of protection you have there? And on top of that, they had bees hives in the yard, and they were stinging the children. They weren't fed really good food. The place was dirty. It was really, really filthy. So I hold on one second. Uh, they weren't protected. Their idea of school was read a book. And it was sad. 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 Uh, so they put in shelter. So you never want to let them in your home without your given permission. And on top of that, you don't want, there's a thing called a warrant. And you got to make sure the warrant is read right. That's the only way they get into your home. And you don't give up your children. They have to have a warrant to take your children. And if you're in the hospital, you don't want them to take your children. Remember to say no. My show time's up. It's almost the end of my 1 hour here. I want to thank the Word Around the Bench, the Truth Movement. We Are the Truth. Lee Medeva, and Michelle Chrissy Martinez for texting in. I appreciate you having there. I hope you come back again. I'm on tomorrow at 12:30 in the afternoon, right after lunch. 12:30 tomorrow, and I'll be again tomorrow night at 7. Please do not stop fighting for your kids. Keep fighting. Do everything they ask. Be nice to them. Be respectful to them, and you will get your kids back. God bless you all. And this is Bob Pace signing off.